Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Great Black Speakers Podcast. My name is Lawrence Watkins, and I'm your host today, and we help you connect through conversation. So, of course, I am the founder and CEO of Great Black Speakers, and also the president and chief operating officer of the Black Business School. Today, we're connecting you with Mr. Ace Chapman, and we met randomly about a week and a half ago, or maybe even less than that. And we'll discuss that a little bit later. But Ace is in private equity, and he helps people buy and sell internet businesses. And he has a pretty large portfolio on his own that he's going to share more about you or more with you here in 1 second. So I really want to know more about that. But first, before we get into that, can you tell the audience a little bit in terms of how you got to your current position, in terms of internet private equity and what you currently do?
Yeah, it started 20 years ago this coming May. I was 19 years old. I was studying political science in New York at a school called Colgate. And wasn't planning on going into business or anything, even though my whole life I'd had a little bit of entrepreneurial bent. I felt like becoming an attorney was a easier or a more secure path. But I kind of to express my business side, I was using this stock market simulator called Cool Wall Street. And I just was frustrated by the people that were running it because they were terrible at customer service. The site was always crashing. Everybody was always complaining that they didn't get responses from people. And this is back in '99, like the internet was kind of a new thing. I was just excited about the business that they were building. And, I knew that it was a younger guy that had started it. And so I reached out to him and just said, hey, would you be interested in having an intern, some free labor this summer? And, I'd love to learn about what you're up to and help out because obviously you guys need help. And he wrote back and basically said, the reason, we're not working on this much is because I've moved on to another project that's just it's growing a lot faster. And I want to sell this. And, I'm a 19-year-old kid. I saved up about $3,000 that I had in my savings. So I definitely didn't consider me being able to buy it. But I was really curious. I'm like, man, I wonder how much money they're making. I wonder how much they want to sell it for. And so I asked them, well, tell me some of the numbers. Maybe I'll come across somebody that wants to buy it. Me fully feel like that was a stretch. But he sent me the numbers. It was making about $60,000 and they wanted $70,000 for it. And I had no idea how to do evaluation, but I had a simple comparable. And it was the fact that the university I was at was charging $30,000 a year. And a lot of my friends that I knew that were graduating were happy to be getting jobs making $30,000, $40,000. So using that as my comp, I'm like, okay, $120,000 to get a $30,000 a year return, which is really just a job compared to paying $70,000 for 60. This sounds like a good comp. So I went about after kind of sleeping on it. And it's one of those things where you have an idea or you want something, you're trying to figure out, okay, how can I get this? I have $30,000. They want 70. I knew nothing about financing or anything like that. But I went back to them. They were willing to sell or finance half of it. And that left me with $32,000 more to come up with, which, for a 19-year-old broke college kid, it might as well have been $1 million. But I had a buddy who did come from some money, told him what was going on. He was like, man, I'll put in $15,000. So now I have about $17,000 more to come up with. And I'm walking on campus, and you probably will remember this back in the day, Lawrence, but back in the day, it was not a rare thing to have all these credit card companies that would set up tables and basically prey on poor college kids, convincing us to take out all this credit in exchange for T-shirts, pretty much is what they would give us, little T-shirts and that kind of thing. So I'm kind of going by, start talking to one of the guys. I'm like, all right, so with this credit card, can I just get some cash? And he tells me how to do that. And I end up with 3 credit cards to come up with the rest of that $17,000. So that was how I pulled together the down payment. And, it's funny, I was talking to somebody just a couple of weeks ago, and they were like, man, you're 19. and you're buying this company. You had to be nervous that this thing wasn't going to work out. And it's funny, I should have been really nervous about that. But the thing that I was most nervous about was that one of those credit card companies would send a statement to my house instead of to the dorm. And so every month I'm calling like, make sure do not send this to my home address, because my parents would have definitely flown to New York and killed me.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you avoided death by parents.
Yes.
Yeah, so they would have killed you. So let's talk about that a little bit. Did you grow up in an entrepreneurial household, or how did your parents think of entrepreneurship as you were young?
When I was younger, my dad was a pastor. And he was in ministry, and so that was the focus of our childhood. When we were young, it was about being in church. Sunday, Wednesday night, Saturday community service. We were pretty well packed. And then I did something called Bible quizzing that we did, during the week as well. So it wasn't a big focus, but at the same time, they were always supportive. And, especially once the business grew beyond the point of me being able to run it from my dorm room. And it's interesting. I just flew my mom up to New York, and we got to spend some time in the city. And we were hanging out with some business partners of mine. They were like, man, you had to be nervous when your son came to you and said, hey, I'm going to quit college and run this thing on the internet, when this is, now we've got a lot of these stories. We have the Mark Zuckerberg, but 1999, we didn't have those stories. It was a lot more of really jumping out on faith and hoping that things were going to work out. And it's funny, I hadn't really talked to them about it, but they would always show a strong face to me, like, oh yeah, we have faith in you, da, da, da. And when we were in New York, she was telling my friends, like, the conversations that we had, behind closed doors, like we wanted him to feel like we were totally behind him, but behind closed doors, we're like, if this doesn't work in a year, we got to get him back in college and, back on the straight and narrow.